around, and I just thought we had
Totally agree.
too many passengers throughout the rest of the game and just weren't on the same page. And they get a couple goals and momentum like that, and then you're chasing the game, and it's hard to get it back. When you're down 3 against a good team that plays sound defensively like them.
Okay, let's leave it there. So the quote is the passengers quote. The quote is, there's too many passengers, and people were using this, especially out of town media. They love this. And I don't disagree. Hang on. I don't blame them. I'm sure this is the most satisfying thing.
It's spank bank material.
Yes.
And they're doing it publicly.
What I love about what Matthews said there was that it was honest. There were too many passengers. And people were like, well, he had 2 shots last night. He was a passenger. And you know what? Like, you could argue the whole damn team was. Listen, Matthews is not going to escape criticism. We'll get to singular efforts.
You get passengers when 4 guys take up half the cap.
Well, exactly. And so I think...
We've been saying this for years.
So I think that when we look at that quote, what I respect about it is he said what everyone is thinking. If you're going to be upset with him for performance, I get it. But at least, finally, along with Berube, and we'll get to that, finally, somebody didn't look the camera dead in the face and said, actually, Cody Cece's numbers were great. I can't stand that with this organization, where it is, we're going to deny you what you saw with your eyes. We're going to deny you what you see on paper in terms of stats. Actually, you're dumb and we're smart. Auston said there's too many passengers. He's the captain. He is going to be, at the end of next season, barring some injury, he's going to be the leading scorer in Leafs history all time. Mm-hmm. I love that he was honest. I love that he said that. I can't stand that people are mad at him for a quote like this. If you're out of town media and you're jerking off to this, fine. But from inside, as a Leaf fan, which I am,
yeah,
I want some honesty. That's what's been making me feel so crazy over the last 9 years.
What are you?
I'm a Leaf fan.
Oh, bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Automatically.
So let's get...
You're the reason they lost.
In fact, Jesse, I am.
Bad guy. You're also worse than other fans.
Yes,
on principle.
Because nobody has a bigger fan group than only the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now let's talk about Craig Berube.
No, here, wait. I want to stick on the Matthews thing.
Oh, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
So I think back to a really annoying Instagram post from Zdeno Chara, and it's only annoying because it's Zdeno Chara. It's actually
he's so great.
He's so great, and he rides his bike looking like
he's still doing marathons.
Freaking
unbelievable.
He's annoying. So he posts this on Instagram, and it's just him pointing at the camera. And it's basically when you point a finger at someone, you're pointing 3 back at yourself. And I always put my hand like this and go, Zdeno, that's not true. But when he points like this.
That's what my mother used to say to me.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think about that style of leadership versus what Matthews did? Because, okay, there's too many passengers. Is he talking about who's he talking about? He's obviously talking about someone.
I think what people were missing from that quote was him doing what Chris Tanev did, saying, I take responsibility for that too, my part in that. And I don't expect, after a devastating game, and those guys coming out, Tavares looked heartbroken.
Oh, yeah.
I think those guys were devastated. And so for him to speak absolutely 100% perfect at a press conference, I'm giving him a pass on that. I do think he meant himself in that too. And I don't think you listen to the tone, right? If you read that quote, you're like, hey, F that guy. What the hell?
The tone is much better than
you listen to that tone. You know what he means.
Yes.
Right? It's inferred. And
I honestly think like a lot of the reaction to that is just people getting their yucks in.
Oh, 100%.
I think it was just people, he says there's a lot of passengers. Everybody wants to get their yuck in. Yeah, including yourself. It's the same thing with the Mitch Marner yelling at the bench part where in the middle of the second, where you see him yelling on the broadcast, wake the fuck up, I think it was. And everybody wants to get in their jokes about, hey, did you yell that to the mirror? Like whenever Leafs things happens, you're going to get that reaction.
Yes, agreed. And I totally understand that. But from within Maple Leafs fandom, and I'm speaking directly to you, that's what we need. We need somebody honest. And is he going to be perfectly spoken every time he steps in front of a mic? No. But I love that. Now, can we do? Are you guys good on that, or can we move to Berube?
Yeah,
because I think Berube also nails it, and I'm grateful for that because Sheldon Keefe was not allowed to nail it. Mm-hmm. Sheldon Keefe was not allowed to step up and say what he really thinks, and I think part of that's good because Sheldon was so emotional that if you heard what Sheldon really thought on a game-to-game basis, I think the team would implode within a couple of weeks.
Sheldon was too angry.
Yes. Craig was as pissed as I've ever seen him on the bench after that third goal went in the second period. It was like, holy fuck, guys, get it together.
Yeah.
And here he is after the game. And I think it speaks to where we're going to go with the show next.
The past playoff series with this team, but you were aware of them, obviously, when you took this job. How much of that baggage with the guys that have been here a while play a part in a moment like tonight where it looks like the moment's too big for them?
Well, I look at, I don't think the moment's too big for him. I think it's, we went to Ottawa and won game 6 and won a series. We went into Florida and won game 6 to make it a game 7, so the moment's not too big. For me, it's all between the years. It's a mindset. These guys are capable of doing it. You just got to execute it. And we didn't execute it. We didn't execute it in game 5. We didn't execute it in game 7. I don't have an answer for that. Why? But that's the bottom line. Thanks.
Oh, wow.
That's
a very, don't ask me no more bullshit, get up.
No, it was the last question.
Yeah, but he got up pretty quick.
Berube.
It made it seem funnier.
Yeah. It was Pierre LeBrun. He had the last question. They're like, last question.
That was Pierre?
Yeah, he has a great question. Yeah.
Berube nailed it. It is a mindset. And what's been amazing over the last 9 years is we've been fed that it isn't. We've been told that it isn't. And I think Chris Johnston, you guys heard of him?
No.
New show out today, I've heard.
He's so good. Yeah, they recorded this morning.
New show out today.
Oh, I can't wait.
Chris Johnston said, I don't think that those guys in that room could sit there and believe that the other guys in that room along with themselves could get it done. I'm paraphrasing, but that's sort of what he said in the TSN sort of Sports Center hit for this morning. And I just, as a Leaf fan, again, finally, somebody says it. Finally, we're getting there.
It triggers something in me. And it's difficult to remember because it was right before COVID. But the Lightning, the 2019 Tampa Bay Lightning. I remember we did a segment and you guys were a little iffy on this take. And you guys were correct. In 2018, the Lightning have a 3-2 lead over the Capitals in the Eastern Conference Final. The last goal they scored in that series was in Game 5. Holtby shuts them out in Game 6 and 7. Tough way to lose a series. What happens the next year? They take it out on the whole rest of the league. They win 62 out of 80 games. They win the President's Trophy, set a record, swept.
Mm-hmm.
Not just swept. They were up 3-0 in Game 1 of that series. Blew it and blew the rest of the series. Kucherov takes his ball and goes home.
Cries about, or he was not cries about, was angry about like certain contracts and players not showing up, and he was talking to the Russian media.
I believe he was talking about Alex Killorn. And I remember the take being, if you're a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning, because they were talking about the potential moves they might make. I was like, if you're in that locker room, how do you look to your left? How do you look to your right? How do you look across from you and think, yes, this is the group that we get it done with? And what happens? The world stops and they don't. They win a cup in 2020. They win a cup in 2021. They won 2 cups in like 10 months. And they went to a 3rd Stanley Cup final in a row in 2022. They had those traumatic losses. Dude, Keenan Thompson got on stage and goofed on the Lightning for like an hour at the NHL Awards to their face. That's how humiliating they were. They were the punchline. How did they respond? Not like meek little lambs, that's for sure.
They responded quicker.
They won the damn cup. They went to 3 straight finals. The Leafs are not the only team that bad things happen to. They just never rise to the occasion when it matters most.
And but what I think too is that they never make anything uncomfortable for people. What Matthews said was uncomfortable. What Berube said is if you're a manager, imagine you're Keith Pelly this morning. Keith Pelly being the head of Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment.
Oh no, I'm gonna have a job no matter what.
If my head coach, if my captain is saying too many passengers and my head coach is saying it's a mindset, because the one thing Berube did say in that press conference, and I think this is 100% true, and Leaf fans might not like to hear this. These guys do care. Mm-hmm. This wasn't a lack of care. Mm-hmm. This is a lack of execution, and it's a mental block.
Yep.
And that's what it comes down to in these games. When I look at how this press conference, those two guys played out, I look at this as a bit of a page turned, excuse me. The chapter is over. They all know it. And that is going to be the thing that they're going to have to change.
You know what this reminds me of is it was either after the 2003 or 2002 loss in the playoffs. Do you remember there was a big story about all the Leafs after getting eliminated?
Not going to a team dinner?
They got into like little cliques and all went out to different places. And that was a big story and all the locker rooms fractured and all that. This kind of reminds me of that because that was this iteration of the team is probably over moment. Mm-hmm. I mean, this iteration of the team is clearly over.